Imagine flying over a frozen wilderness, a place so vast, so silent, that even the sound of your own breath feels out of place. Now imagine this. Your aircraft suddenly slips off the radar. No distress call, no beacon, no wreckage ever found. This isn't a scene from a thriller. It's a real pattern, one that has repeated itself thousands of times inside a mysterious region known as Alaska's Triangle. Here, between Anchorage, Juneau, and the northern town of Utqiagvik, more than 20,000 people have vanished over the past few decades. Pilots, hikers, hunters, entire aircraft, gone without leaving behind a single trace. Search teams comb the mountains. Dogs pick up nothing. Helicopters scan the valleys and glaciers. Yet the snow remains untouched, as if the land itself swallowed them whole. Locals whisper that the triangle chooses who returns and who disappears forever. But the most chilling part? Even when investigators believe they've found an explanation, the land keeps proving them wrong. And at the center of it all lies one of the most baffling cases in American history. A disappearance so shocking, the entire U.S. government launched one of the largest search operations in modern times. A search that found absolutely nothing. So what exactly is happening inside the Alaska Triangle? Is it the brutal wilderness, something beneath the ice, or something far older, watching from the mountains? Let's step into the cold. Because once you enter the triangle, the story is never as simple as it seems. The Alaska Triangle isn't just a shape on a map. It's a vast, frozen labyrinth stretching from the bustling city of Anchorage down to the coastal capital of Juneau and all the way north to Utqiagvik, where the sun disappears for months and the cold feels almost alive. For thousands of years, the indigenous people of Alaska have spoken about this land with a mixture of respect and fear. To them, these mountains were not empty. These forests were not silent. And some valleys were places you simply did not enter, no matter how brave you thought you were. Early explorers wrote about the same thing. Compasses spinning without reason, maps suddenly becoming useless. Entire valleys covered in a strange, rolling fog that swallowed sound and made travelers lose their sense of direction in minutes. Modern scientists describe this region as a collision of fierce winds, magnetic anomalies, and some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. Towering peaks, endless tundra, and glaciers with crevasses deep enough to hide anything or anyone. But ask the locals, and they'll tell you something different. They believe certain places inside the triangle do not welcome humans. People step inside, and it feels as if the land is watching them back. Some hunters refuse to cross certain ridges alone. Others say they've heard footsteps beside them in the snow, even when no tracks ever appear. For centuries, stories like these have been passed down quietly, warnings about a land that seems alive, ancient, and unpredictable. And as the years went by, those stories grew darker because people didn't just get lost here. They vanished completely, which brings us to the cases that turned the Alaska Triangle from a whispered legend into a national mystery. Disappearances inside the Alaska Triangle are not rare curiosities. They're a pattern so large, so impossible to ignore, that it has shaped the very identity of this place. And it begins with one of the most shocking cases. On October 16, 1972, a small aircraft carrying U.S. Congressman Hale Boggs, one of the most powerful men in Washington at the time, vanished while flying from Anchorage to Juneau. The plane never sent a distress call. It simply faded from the sky. What followed was extraordinary. For 39 days, the U.S. government launched one of the largest search and rescue missions ever attempted. Hundreds of aircraft, thousands of square miles scanned, military teams, thermal imaging, specialized trackers. They found Nothing. Not a wing. Not a seatbelt. Not even an oil stain. It was as if the plane and everyone on board had been erased. But that was only one event. Go back even further to 1950. A massive C-124 Globemaster carrying 44 passengers and crew lost contact near the triangle's southern edge. Searchers located a few metal fragments scattered on a mountainside, but the aircraft itself and every person inside were never recovered. Then there are the smaller stories, the private pilots who radio in clear skies, only to vanish minutes later. The experienced hikers who step off a familiar trail and are never seen again. The hunters who leave camp for a short walk. In most places, incidents like these would be rare. In the Alaska Triangle, they've happened thousands of times. Over the past few decades, more than 20,000 people have been reported missing within this region. Some cases have explanations. Many do not. And the most disturbing ones share a single, haunting detail. No bodies, no wreckage, no trace. Just absence, frozen into the landscape. But the people of Alaska have their own theories, stories passed down for generations about what dwells in these mountains and why some travelers never come home. And those stories are far stranger than any missing person report. Long before modern maps drew the Alaska Triangle, the people who lived here already feared its shadows. To the Tlingit and several other native tribes, this land wasn't empty wilderness. It was alive, watched over by ancient beings whose presence could mean protection or doom. One of their most feared legends is the Kushtaka, a shape-shifting creature that appears as an otter on two legs, or worse, as someone you love. According to legend, the Kushtaka mimics human voices. A child crying, a friend calling for help, luring travelers off the trail and deeper into the trees. Those who follow never return the same. Some vanish. Others, the stories say, are transformed into Kushtaka themselves. But the Kushtaka is not alone in these tales. Across Alaska, people speak of the little people, small, powerful beings that live in caves in moss-covered valleys. Some tribes describe them as guardians of sacred places. Others warn that they are tricksters, capable of paralyzing travelers with fear or leading them hopelessly astray. Children were once told never to wander too far at dusk because the little people walk the forest at that hour. And then there is Thomas Bay, a place settlers later named the Devil's Country. Hunters in the 1800s reported seeing strange human-shaped figures with matted hair, long arms, and a stench so strong it made their eyes water. Some fled the valley in the middle of the night, convinced they were being stalked by something intelligent and angry. To outsiders, these are just stories. But to the people who have lived here for generations, cautioning travelers not to underestimate this land. The line between legend and reality is thinner than anywhere else in North America. And as the modern world would soon discover, the disappearances didn't stop at folklore. If the legends of the Alaska Triangle were only ancient stories, they might be easier to ignore. But the modern accounts are far more unsettling. One of the most infamous comes from a remote fishing village called Portlock, or Port Chatham. In the early 1900s, hunters and loggers began reporting terrifying encounters in the dense forest above the bay. They spoke of huge footprints, trees torn apart, and a creature watching them from the ridgelines. A creature the Aleut people called Nantinak, their version of Bigfoot. Bodies were found in the rivers, broken in ways no bear or wolf could explain. Men vanished after walking only a few minutes from camp. By the 1940s, the fear grew so overwhelming that the entire village packed up and left, abandoning Portlock to the moss, the sea fog, and the thing that was believed to roam its forests. But the mysteries of the Triangle don't end on the ground. They also appear in the sky. For decades, pilots and residents have reported strange lights, gliding silently over the mountains, triangular shapes, hovering without sound, moving in ways no known aircraft can. Some vanish in an instant, as if slipping behind a curtain no one else can see. A few missing person reports include radio calls, cut off by sudden static, followed by flashes of light. Search teams found no wreckage, no clues, just an empty stretch of wilderness beneath a sky witnesses swore was not normal that night. And then there's the theory that ties everything together. The idea that the triangle sits on a network of energy vortexes, natural anomalies where magnetic fields twist and distort. Some vortexes are said to heighten awareness, others to scramble the mind, creating panic, confusion, and the terrifying urge to walk deeper into the wilderness without understanding why. To believers, these vortexes explain the vanishings. To skeptics, they're nothing more than metaphors. But either way, the Alaska Triangle continues to behave like a place that bends reality. A place where people, aircraft, and entire villages can slip away without a single trace. And as investigators search for answers, science offered explanations, but not certainty. For all the legends surrounding the Alaska Triangle, there is one undeniable truth. This is one of the most dangerous landscapes on Earth. And science has plenty to say about why. First, the terrain itself. Massive mountain ranges cut through the region like jagged blades. Glaciers hide deep crevasses that can swallow a person or an entire aircraft wing with no trace left on the surface. A single snowstorm can erase evidence in minutes, burying tracks, debris, even bodies. Then there's the weather. Fast, unpredictable, brutal. Clear skies can turn into whiteout conditions in less time than it takes a pilot to climb to cruising altitude. Winds crash through the valleys at hurricane strength, pushing small planes far off course and stripping hikers of their sense of direction. But one of the most fascinating factors lies beneath the ground itself. Large portions of Alaska sit over zones of magnetic anomaly, areas where the Earth's magnetic field bends and shifts. Navigational instruments can drift by several degrees, causing pilots to misjudge their position in a landscape with almost no visual reference points. And finally, there's the simple math. Alaska has fewer roads than almost any other U.S. state, yet it has one of the highest numbers of small aircraft and backcountry travelers. More people venture into the wild, far fewer come back. To scientists, these factors explain why so many disappearances happen here and why so few are ever solved. But even the experts admit there are cases that don't fit the pattern. Aircraft that vanish without sending a single distress call. Wreckage that should be detectable, but never is. Entire search grids swept clean, with nothing to show for weeks of effort. It's these unsolved edges, the missing bodies, the absent debris, the silence where answers should be, that blur the line between science and something else entirely. And in the Alaska Triangle, that lingering 10% is often the part no one can explain. In the end, the Alaska Triangle remains a place that refuses to give up its secrets. It is a crossroads where brutal nature, ancient legend, and unexplained disappearances collide in a way found almost nowhere else on Earth. Scientists can map the weather, measure the magnetic fields, and offer logical explanations for most of what happens here. But the truth is harder, colder, and far more unsettling. Thousands of people have vanished into this landscape, and the land has returned almost nothing. No answers. No closure. Just a silence that hangs over the mountains, like a warning. To stand in the triangle is to feel that silence, the weight of stories whispered for generations, the chill of a wind that seems to follow your steps, and the uneasy sense that you're not entirely alone out there. Maybe the disappearances are the work of weather or terrain or human error. Or maybe, as the legends suggest, there's something older at play. Something patient. Something that watches from the tree lines and beneath the ice. Whatever the truth is, the Alaska Triangle reminds us of a sobering reality. Not all mysteries lie in distant galaxies. Some are right here, on our own forgotten edges of the map. And speaking of the unknown, our next journey takes us far from the frozen mountains of Alaska to the bottom of the Baltic Sea, where a strange, perfectly symmetrical object was discovered by accident. An object that looks nothing like a rock formation and nothing like anything humans have placed there. Some say it's natural. Some say it's a lost structure from the Ice Age. Others whisper a different possibility entirely. Join me in the next episode, Earth's Hidden Mysteries, the Baltic Sea Anomaly, Sweden and Finland's underwater enigma. Because beneath those cold northern waters, something is waiting. And the deeper we look, the stranger it becomes.